Have you ever thought, I've never felt this connected to someone before? This has to be from God. But what if the strongest emotional connection you ever felt wasn't God's confirmation, but your deepest wound being activated? Today, we're talking about why toxic relationships can feel incredibly spiritual and how to tell the difference. Hi, love. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, my name is Etienne. I help women heal from toxic, abusive relationships and step fully into their God given purpose. Toxic, abusive relationships don't always start abusive from day one. Sometimes they can start with love bombing, intense connection, or emotional highs. And when you think about it, if on the first date that person was toxic and abusive, you would not give them a second date, let alone the time of day after that date was over. You would be like, I'm done with you. I don't want anything to do with you. I've seen what I had to see. I'm done. But the reason why toxic, abusive relationships start off like that, really intense, really euphoric, like, is to get you hooked. So eventually that person will end up having control over you. Now, I want to stress that there is a difference between toxic relationship and just a merely difficult relationship. In a difficult relationship, it has problems that two people can potentially work out. Whereas in a toxic relationship, it has recurring patterns. And I want you to pay attention to that word, patterns, that steadily damage your emotional well being, your dignity, your safety, and your sense of self. So, why do people confuse intensity with love? Because intensity can feel convincing. When a relationship produces butterflies, obsession, dramatic declarations, etc., it can be so powerful that we assume something this emotionally consuming must be love. But the strength of an emotion is not an indicator of the health of a relationship. Usually, uncertainty makes the other person more desirable, and love bombing can imitate intimacy. So, what exactly is a trauma bond? It's a powerful emotional attachment that can develop between someone and a person who repeatedly harms, mistreats, or abuses them, especially when harm is mixed with periods of affection, relief, reassurance, and reconciliation. So it is going to follow the pattern of devastation, reunion, and euphoria. And within that pattern, intermittent reinforcement can happen, and because of that, that's why a lot of people become addicted to the person or the relationship, and they find it really, really hard to let go or stay gone if they do leave. And intermittent reinforcement is when positive attention, affection, or rewards are given unpredictably and inconsistently, making a person more likely to seek them. So why does this create a stronger attachment? It's because unpredictable affection can make the brain work harder to obtain the next rewarding moment. And unpredictability can make people keep trying longer because occasionally their efforts produce a powerful reward. Now, the reason why unstable relationships can produce memories of incredible highs, and this was such a light bulb that went off, because if you were in a toxic abusive relationship, or even if you're in one right now and you remember those incredible highs, most likely the reason why they feel that way is because intensity might have been amplified by distress immediately preceding the event. So think about it this way: if you were in a regular relationship and you're having a great day or a normal day, and you get a text from your partner, and it's just a loving text saying like, oh, I love you so much, I'm so happy we're together, you know, you're such an amazing person, whatever, right? You would think, oh wow, that is so sweet of him, that's so kind of him, that's so loving of him. You would feel pleasant. But if you're in a toxic abusive relationship, and before you received that text, you either got into an argument or a disagreement or a fight with your partner, and you were feeling high levels of stress, high levels of anxiety, you're wondering where you stand, you're questioning like, what could you have done better, and you're just going back and forth in your mind. If you were to receive a text like that, after all that distress, it would feel euphoric, because in that moment, you are receiving relief from the stress and the worry and the anxiety and the pain that you were experiencing prior to that. So it's going to make that moment feel euphoric, feel like an incredible high, When in reality, if you would have received that text in a different kind of relationship, in a more normal, stable relationship, a healthy relationship, you would not have, it would not have heightened that moment. It's like going from, if you're going from a 7 to a 9, it feels pleasant. But if you're going from a 2 to a 9, that's where it feels euphoric because it's offering you relief. So why would this feel like destiny to someone experiencing it? It's because they may be experiencing something extraordinarily intense and interpreting that intensity as significance. But this type of relationship tends to occupy an enormous amount of mental space, and that can feel like emotional significance. But a powerful feeling isn't automatically God's direction. So why would a woman believe that something is from God when there are obvious warning signs? And the reason is that sincerity and discernment are two different things. Sometimes desire can influence interpretation. Coincidences that feel meaningful aren't necessarily from God. I know one of my clients, like, her desire to be in her last relationship, her last toxic abusive relationship, her desire was so strong that she couldn't see the facts that were right in front of her face. Like, she completely ignored them. She made excuses for him constantly. And what God was trying to show her, what God was revealing to her, because her desire was so strong, it was like completely clouding the facts that were right in front of her face. God was showing her time after time, like, this man is not for you. This man is not your husband. What, I think it was like the last day they were together, she had like randomly opened up her Bible to see, like, oh, like, to possibly get a message from God or whatnot. And when she opened it, she came across a chapter that I think was talking about salvation or saving someone's life or something like that. And she thought it was talking about him, that he will eventually be saved. And she took it as like, oh, maybe this is God telling me to, hold on, hold tight, like, stay where you are. But then something happened that night, and it wasn't until later when she reflected on that moment that she was like, I don't think that verse, that chapter was for him. I think it was for me. And I was like, whoa. It's so crazy that when you're in it and your desire to force something to be is so strong, it prevents you from seeing clearly and seeing what God is trying to reveal to you, because you're so hyper focused on that relationship that you don't see, like, all the other things that God is like, hey, this person isn't it. Hey, this person is not for you. Hey, this man is not your husband. God is like bringing everything to light. And because you are literally turning the other way and looking at the desire that you want, you're not seeing or hearing God. Another thing is that intensity can feel spiritual. You can confuse persistence with providence. Sometimes women spiritualize suffering. They'll say things like, oh, well, God is teaching me patience. God is teaching me understanding, compassion with him. God is not going to use someone harming you, someone being abusive, manipulating you, chipping away at your identity, crushing you, essentially bringing you farther away from God to teach you how to become a better person. God is not going to do something like that. God wants you out of that, because God wants you healed, transformed, so that way you can walk in the purpose he has for you. God doesn't want you to be in bondage. God doesn't want you to be abused. God doesn't want you to be in a relationship where your self-worth is like a fraction of what it was before you even got in that relationship. God doesn't want those things for you. And he's not going to use a toxic, abusive person to teach you patience, to teach you how to be kind and loving and all that stuff. He's not going to use a relationship like that or a person like that to teach you those things. Another thing is that sometimes women, they will discern through feelings instead of fruit. You need to ask yourself, what kind of fruit does this relationship produce? You have to hold up the fruit that he is showing you and the fruit that that relationship is producing to the fruit that is in the Bible, to hold them up to the kind of love that God shows us. Is he patient? Is he kind? Is he loving? What kind of fruit does a relationship produce? If it's always producing anxiety, worry, stress, anguish, angst, a lot of times that's your answer. And one of the last reasons is that sometimes she believes that God promised her his potential. God can definitely transform people, but that doesn't mean a woman has to be assigned to remain in a destructive relationship while waiting for that transformation. You're not obligated to wait in a relationship for someone to reach the potential that they told you they want to be at. And this goes especially for dating. This is mainly for dating. If someone tells you, like, oh, I know in 5 years I'll be the man that you want, step away. You are not obligated to wait for somebody. Now, if you guys go your own separate way, you come across him again in 5 years and he is that man, then obviously that's a different story. But the thing is that one, you barely know him, especially if you just started dating him. You don't know for sure if he's going to be that in 5 years. You don't know for certain if that's the case. So you are not, and I stress this, you are not obligated to stay in a relationship and wait for someone to reach the level of the man of God that you want to marry, especially if you are ready for marriage right now. Don't do that. Don't do that. That is a recipe for disaster. Because I honestly also too, as a woman, I feel like if a guy has to say that to you, like, I want someone that's ready now. Like, I don't want to wait 5, 6 years for you to become the man that you want to become. If we're both still single when that happens and we come across and everything lines up and God wants us to be together, then that's a different story. But most likely, life doesn't really work out that way. Are there exceptions to the rule? Of course, there always are. But the majority of the time, it doesn't work out that way. And I feel like that whole saying, like, oh, right person, wrong time. No, if it wasn't right person, right time, then it was the wrong person. That's it. If it's not, if it's like right person, wrong time, then it wasn't the right person to begin with. Because if it was the right person, it would be the right time. Both of those things have to align. Intensity isn't confirmation, attachment isn't confirmation, and someone knowing how to talk about God is definitely not confirmation. We need discernment. And I can tell you this because there was a time in my life where I didn't know the difference. I thought that the intensity that I experienced in my last relationship was confirmation that he was the one. I thought, because I felt so attached to him, I thought that, like, oh, like, we have so much in common. Every time we're together, like, it's so euphoric. When things started taking a turn and we started arguing, we started having disagreements, the relationship wasn't as amazing as it was in the beginning. Every time that he would show me affection, every time he would show me love, I felt like those moments were like, oh my gosh, that means we're meant to be together because I love him so much. I didn't want to give up. But the reality is, like, that wasn't the case at all. I had ignored red flags. I ignored all the warning signs, all the love bombing that happened in the beginning of the relationship, because I had experienced love bombing in another relationship, but it was completely different than what I experienced in this relationship. And I just thought, like, oh wow, yeah, he texts me every day, morning, afternoon, and night. He always made sure to text me in the morning, good morning. He always made sure to text me in the afternoon and at night. And then, like, when things started kind of disappearing, I was like, wait, what's wrong? What's going on? Like, why is he acting different? Like, why is he pulling away? And when I would bring it up to him, he would make me feel like, I don't have to text you all the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. I know you don't, but, like, you used to. So, like, I'm just wondering, like, is everything okay? But anyways, we as women, we need to have discernment. We need to, the more that we pay attention to our discernment, the more God will give us more of it. I just know in the past, whenever God would give me discernment about anybody, most of the time I would ignore it. So I think I think that like as I got as time went on, my ability to be able to hear God clearly got less and less and less because I just kept ignoring him. I kept like, no, I'm gonna do what I want to do. Yeah, you told me, you gave me dreams, you answered my prayer, you let me know, you revealed to me the truth multiple times, but I'm still gonna do what I'm gonna do. I don't think God gives up on us, but I do believe that because of our own choices, if we choose to ignore the wisdom and the discernment that God is trying to give us, our ability, and that's because of our own doing, our ability to be able to receive and hear that clearly is it's going to be hindered. But the more you listen to your discernment, the more you receive it, the more you will get of it, and then that connection will be clear and clear every time. When I finally opened my eyes was when someone that I was friends with in his friend group pretty much brought everything to my face. She laid it out on the table and she was like, hey, I was in a toxic, abusive relationship myself. And a lot of the things that he says and does to you remind me of my ex. And it was because of that conversation that I had when things started to shift and I started to realize, like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot be in this relationship anymore. It was just chipping away at my heart and my soul and my identity, at my self-worth. I was a shell of who I was when I first got into that relationship. That was the turning point for me. Now I want to share with you how to break free and discern clearly. The first thing is stop using the strength of your feelings as evidence. Feelings give us information, but they do not automatically give us direction. I've shared this analogy before so many times about the kids in the car. Your emotions are like kids in the car. You don't ever want your emotions to be at the driver's seat because they can drive the car and get into an accident and then we all die. And you don't ever want to put the kids in the trunk because they can also suffocate and die as well. I know it's a little gruesome, but you get the drift. You always want to keep the kids in the back seat where you could see them in the rearview mirror and pull over if they need to be attended to when the time is right. And that's how you should treat your emotions. They should never be driving the car and you should never be stuffing them in the trunk. They should always be in the back seat where you can attend to them when the time is right. And that's exactly how you should be treating your emotions. You should never let your emotions run the show. And that includes in dating and in your relationship. I recently was on a dating app, like, I don't know, maybe like 2.5 months ago or so, give or take. And I noticed when I matched with a guy that was my type, I was attracted to, we believed the same things. And there was another thing, a fourth one. Oh, and that he was interested in me too. I got so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, every time he messaged me back, I was like, I just felt like this big ball of energy. Well, probably like a couple hours in, I realized I was like, wait a minute. I'm not going to be able to I'm not going to be able to like really truly like discern anything if I'm super excited. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with feeling excitement, but if your excitement is so heightened that you're not going to be able to hear God clearly, then it's time to take a step back. What I did was I prayed and I was like, God, can you please calm me down? And he did. I think we started messaging back and forth. I think it was like on a Monday. And then by Wednesday or Thursday, I had ended it because God already gave me the answer. I did not let that excitement drive my car. I did not let the excitement drive me or take control of the situation. Because if I would have not calmed down, then I would not have been able to hear God clearly. Back then, I couldn't articulate why I felt the need to calm down. But looking back, it was because I knew deep down inside that if I didn't calm down, then I would take anything and everything that this guy would say to me as like, oh my gosh, he's so amazing, he's so this. And I wouldn't have been able to truly assess the situation with a clear mental capacity. Now, I get it. You meet somebody that's attractive, you guys have the same beliefs, he's interested in you. Of course, it's all like it is super exciting. I get it. I experienced it. But healing from a toxic abusive relationship, you don't ever want to go back into another one. Like, you don't ever want to go back into another situation like that ever again. So it is very important that you partner with God when you start dating again, when you start meeting people. And if you feel like you are overly excited, ask God to calm you down so you could see clearly and hear Him clearly. The second thing is look at patterns instead of promises. What does this person consistently do? And that leads us to look at the fruit. Does this relationship consistently produce honesty, respect, self control, safety, and peace? Or does it produce manipulation, instability, fear, compromise, or confusion? You want to separate God's character from your desired outcome. Sometimes we want something so badly that we start looking for confirmation rather than discernment. Something that I like to do is I do pray to God and ask Him, like, God, can you please increase my discernment? God, can you please increase my wisdom? You can ask God for the same thing and He will give it to you freely. You want to create enough distance to see clearly. If you're constantly cycling between conflict and reconciliation, it can be incredibly difficult to evaluate the relationship objectively. And you also want to bring wise people into the situation. Toxic relationships often become harder to recognize in isolation. I also recommend that your wise counsel, one, that they are women of God, and also that you don't seek too much information. I would say maximum 3 people. 3 people that you respect, that you look up to, someone that is a spiritual leader, a close best friend, someone that has experience. If you could find a Christian counselor as well, someone that deals with relationships, that would be amazing. Only because when you go and seek too much advice from too many people, then you end up confusing yourself. So I say I recommend 3 max, 1 minimum, but 3 max. When you go to seek wise counsel, make sure you tell them the whole truth. Because if you only give them a portion of the truth, they're going to give you advice based on the information that you give them. And if you're not giving them the whole picture, then they're not going to give you the right advice that you need to hear. Like, for example, one of my clients, like, when she was still in her toxic abusive relationship, she would go out and ask advice from multiple people, but she wouldn't tell them the whole story. And so they would end up telling her, like, oh, well, just give it another go. Maybe he's just stressed out. Maybe he's this, like, relationships work out. Read this book, da da da. And I'm just like, if they only knew, if they only knew what was really happening behind closed doors, none of those people would ever recommend anybody to stay in that type of relationship. So if you're going to go and seek wise counsel, make sure that it is 3 people max. You trust them. It is people you look up to. They're all God-fearing people. And if you can somehow get a Christian relationship counselor in there in the mix, that would be even better. The next thing is strengthen your boundaries. Remember, boundaries are biblical. God says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Healing isn't about learning how to control another person's behavior. It's learning what behavior you will and will not continue allowing access to your life. The next thing is renewing your mind with the truth, just like it says in Romans 12:2. Healing involves learning to challenge thoughts such as, I'll never feel this way again. Maybe he's the one. Or, if I can't stop thinking about him, it must mean something. You have to challenge those thoughts. You have to combat them. If those thoughts pop into your mind, the way you combat it is you say out loud, I do not come into agreement with those thoughts. And then you find the corresponding verse that combats that lie. Because one, God would never, ever, ever want you to be with someone who abuses you and mistreats you. He loves his daughters way too much to have us go through stuff like that. And lastly, give yourself permission to grieve. Missing someone doesn't mean you made the wrong decision. Just because you're grieving, because you miss him, because you missed a relationship, it doesn't mean that you're meant to go back. It doesn't. It's just a feeling. And if you're feeling that, it means that grieving is actually taking place, that healing is occurring. And most importantly, Breaking a trauma bond can feel painful even when leaving was healthy. The pain itself isn't evidence that God wants you to return. I know that you, and this is all ties back into a trauma bond. This all ties back to intermittent reinforcement. I know so badly you want to hit because you're missing him, you're missing the relationship, and you're questioning whether or not you should have left. That feeling, that's all it is. It's just a feeling. It's not the direction that you should be taking with your life, and whether or not you should go back to him. God, just because you miss him, just because you feel like you need him in your life, that is not God directing you to him. What is happening is that you, if you're experiencing very similar symptoms to withdrawal, that is just your body withdrawing from the relationship. You are breaking free. That is a sign that the hold is breaking off. Don't only ask, how strongly do I feel about him? Learn to ask, what fruit does this relationship produce? And does it align with the character and wisdom of God? If you've mistaken emotional intensity for God's leading before, it doesn't mean that you're foolish or beyond God's grace. Many sincere believers have made decisions from a place of hurt, loneliness, and even confusion. The good news is that God is patient. He doesn't just forgive us of our mistakes, he teaches us discernment. As you heal, you'll be able to recognize more and more between a relationship that stirs your emotions and one that lines up with God's character. Love, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and you got a lot of wisdom and knowledge from it and revelation. If you like this kind of content, please remember to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out my free 5-day self-worth reset devotional. I will link it down below in the description box. It's just a great way to increase your self-worth, to grow closer to God, and to realize that your identity is in him, not in any other relationship, not in any other person, not in anything outside of yourself. And when your identity, when your self-worth comes from God, nothing else that's outside of you will ever take that away from you. So ladies, I love you so much. God absolutely adores you. He wants the best for you, and he wants you to date with discernment, to live your life with discernment. He wants you to walk with authority, the authority that he gave you. Ladies, I hope you have the most beautiful, wonderful day, and I will see you next time.